Welcome to the Mojo Mundi podcast, where it's all about magic, manifesting, and movement. I'm Ginny Watts, the Dancing Witch, and I am excited to examine the relationship between diversity and the art of allowing. The words diverse and diversity have been in the English language for at least 650 years, according to the Oxford English Dictionary. These words have their roots in Latin words meaning, quote, turned in different directions, situated apart, differing, to separate oneself from, be different, diverge. In other podcasts, we've talked about the art of allowing in the face of situations where we and the other are turned in different directions, where our opinions or wishes are different from another's views, or where what we want diverges from our current reality. These situations demonstrate one process of connection between diversity and allowing. Diversity and allowing are also related in much more complex ways. In my first Mojo Mundi podcast, I mentioned the relationships among diversity, co-creation, and our existential purpose. In this sense of the word diversity, I am referring to diversity in a modern context. The concept of diversity became a significant part of political and social justice lexicons in the 1970s after the passage of the U.S. Civil Rights Act of 1964. In her June 30, 2020 article titled, "The Language of Diversity is, diverse," available on the UC Denver website, Alicita Rodriguez writes, quote, "You might think of diversity as an umbrella term meant to include and welcome people who have historically been discriminated against for many reasons. Diversity has taken on the meaning of valuing differences among people of different races, different colors, different cultures, different genders, different lifestyles, different body types, different capacities. And it isn't just in social contexts that we see a move toward honoring the importance of differences." The term biodiversity comes from the natural sciences and appeared for the first time in print in the mid-1980s. On its website, www.amnh.org, the American Museum of Natural History states biodiversity, quote, refers to the variety of life on Earth at all its levels, from genes to ecosystems, and can encompass the evolutionary, ecological, and cultural processes that sustain life. Biodiversity is important to humans because it is the primary measure of the health of planet Earth, and the health of our planet affects the ability of the entire human species to survive. When social and political activists assert the importance of valuing and including people who are different from ourselves, or different from the dominant culture, they are not only addressing an intrinsic idea that all people deserve respect, or that there are basic inalienable human rights. They are also acknowledging the value of differing opinions, skills, ideas, and strengths in the context of cultural evolution and maintenance of peace and prosperity. When biologists and ecologists unequivocally state the importance of biodiversity to the survival of the human species, they also emphasize the intrinsic value of each element of the environment, from the microscopic to the celestial. Diversity has become a term that enfolds self-centered interest and species survival, aesthetics and practicality, philosophy and science, morals and natural laws, ethics and survival instincts. I have come to understand that diversity is a divine truth as well as a human construct. Diversity is the purpose of co-creation and its natural outcome. I was first introduced to the idea of diversity connected to the divine in the teachings of the Abraham through Esther Hicks. At a basic level, diversity presents contrast, and contrast helps us understand what doesn't agree with us. From that understanding, we have the opportunity to discover what does agree with us, and out of that discovery arises our intentions for what we want to manifest. But the importance of diversity is greater than the role of catalyst for intention. In Getting into the Vortex, the Abraham through Hicks say, quote, "It is the satisfying understanding that the existing components will continue to produce a never-ending plethora of new components from which to choose. The dynamics of creation are intoxicating and life-giving." That is to say, The diversity of what each soul experiences and manifests sets in motion the process of creating more diversity. Sameness is limiting. When there is too much of anything, stagnation results. Diversity is self-perpetuating. Differing experiences, points of view, values, habits, beliefs are by definition contrasts. Contrast is the catalyst for manifesting, and so is diversity. Diversity invites us, sometimes, especially when we are manifesting unintentionally, compels us into co-creation with deity. And what we create is a reflection of our uniqueness and our unique relationship with deity. Not only are our manifestations as diverse as we are, but the way in which we manifest them is unique. By the fundamental laws of attraction, intentional creation, and allowing, Creator has set in motion a never-ending, always changing and expanding world with diversity as its defining quality. Creativity is defined in part by the ideas of singularity and innovation. If we insist on sameness, if we must think the same thoughts, pray identical prayers, dress the same, appear the same, if we demand that anything we do not like must not exist, spiders, electric cars, country music, clowns, politicians, we are in direct opposition to our spiritual life purpose. We are intentionally attempting to destroy diversity, which is the driving force behind creation. How do we know that Goddess, Allah, God, the Tao, Mother Nature, the Big Bang intends for diversity to be the heart of creation? If we believe in something bigger than ourselves, and we believe that something poured forth our material world, then we can look to that world for clues about the Creator and the creation. We've already mentioned one clue. Diversity is a primary measure of the health of our planet. If we don't believe the biologists, we can simply look around, observe creation, examine our world. Is our natural environment full of sameness or full of diversity? Has our world from the very beginning been a world of uniformity or of variety? Look at our own species. Are all humans identical in skin color, body type, skills, language, customs? Are all dogs identical? All cats? All insects? When we admit that our world, as Creator makes it, is radiant, riotous complexity, and that it thrives because of that complexity, we can no longer deny the value of diversity. In terms of manifesting, how does diversity help or hinder the process? Diversity is not only helpful, it ignites the manifesting process. If we believe in manifesting, if we accept that co-creating is our purpose on earth and that co-creation is a most beautiful form of spiritual communion with deity, we are embracing diversity because it is the origin and the culmination of co-creation. The art of allowing is the means to embracing diversity. Humans have evolved in an environment replete with contrast. While we evolve, we shed some unhelpful and obsolete behaviors and habits. But we don't shed something until our brains are able to find a meaningful something else to fill the void that will exist once we jettison the old belief or habit. I believe that, currently, we are at a cultural evolutionary turning point. If we choose to expand and thrive, we will embrace diversity, allowing what is in order to fuel the manifesting of an ever more diverse and intricately elegant world in the process. That is a great challenge. In order to make great changes, we must take small steps. How might the process of embracing and valuing diversity look in the moment? How can we recognize where we resist diversity, where we can allow diversity, and where diversity shines forth in the present? Let us step into the heart of contrast and diversity by considering the current socio-political climate of the United States. No 15 or 20-minute podcast can do justice to the immense tangle of this subject. What I hope to do here is cherry-pick a small example in the maelstrom to offer a few alternatives for responding in that illustrative moment. My son and I were discussing the 2024 presidential election. I commented that the Democrats should have run Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez as VP to Kamala Harris. My son said, "No way! A woman VP can't get elected. 2 women running guarantees defeat." Here was contrast for me. I like it when people agree with me. I particularly like it when my children agree with me. My first response was to shoot back that the Democrats lost a significant number of votes among young liberal Democrats. My son agreed and promptly quoted me the information he compiled through a complex assessment of voting results, population, polls, etc. He then pointed out the facts of a string of presidential contests where candidates who are female or candidates whose running partners are female have consistently lost U.S. presidential elections. The debate continued. Eventually, we were able to hear each other. We acknowledged what we recognized as valid in one another's arguments and conceded what was our own personal bias, what was wishful thinking, and what was belief that wasn't supported by fact. Did it change anything? Yes. We admired one another's intelligence and knowledge. We allowed one another to be right about some things, and we allowed ourselves to be wrong about some things. We discovered that allowing another person to shift our thinking was safe. We recognized that admitting to our own frailties could build rather than diminish respect. And it wasn't entirely easy for either of us, despite the fact we have a safe and loving relationship and a long history of practicing disagreeing. There were a number of important factors that made this process positive. First, we allowed the other person to speak. We allowed ourselves to be curious about another person's opinion, an opinion that was in direct contrast to our own. We allowed that different perspectives are not only inevitable, they are also important. We allowed our perceptions of our world and of one another to gently change, and change invites creativity. We allowed discomfort to be tolerable, even positive. This was possible because we felt safe with one another in the big scheme of things. Is it possible to allow diversity that feels unsafe, that feels threatening? I believe it is. I have a neighbor who flies, among other banners and flags, one that reads, "This is Ultra MAGA Country." I drive by the house frequently. At first, I felt critical. Here was contrast on steroids. I felt immediately diametrically opposed to the faceless person behind the flags. How do we honor another person whose perspective is so foreign to our own? And how do we do that and continue to honor our own values? There is no right answer or best answer. Allowing is a process, a spiritual practice. Here are the steps I've taken so far in regard to my neighbor. Initially, I turned my attention to myself. I have no way of knowing who this neighbor really is. My responses to the flag are not caused by him because I don't know him. Rather, they are a result of what I think and believe and consequently feel. I first had to recognize my judgment and understand where that came from. Ultimately, I was judging this person as dangerous. I was feeling fear. I had to ask myself, was I in immediate danger? The answer is no. I examined why I felt endangered and then validated that my history, the nation's history, and my assumptions would, of course, elicit fear in me. I validated what was based in fact, and I also acknowledged what was supposition. From there, I began to sort out what was mine to deal with. First and most important, I want to choose love over fear. Second, I want to have faith that deity is ultimately responsible for all that unfolds. I allow that I am not in control of another person's choices, and I want to be respectful of the other person's path, no matter how that contrasts with me. That does not mean that I have to agree with or approve their choices. It means that I respect that their lives and choices are between them and their God. Being able to ground my feet on my spiritual path helped me to see what next steps I wanted to take. I chose to get curious. I wondered and reflected on what I have heard from people who support the current president. I reviewed what people said about why they voted the way they did in the most recent election. Some of it was very foreign to me. Some of it was painful. And there were a number of important ways that I agreed with their comments. I can understand fears about the economy, the continual rising costs of food, housing, and gas. I can agree with concerns about the reach of government into personal decisions. I most strongly identify with their frustrations with politicians and the state of political campaign financing and political lobbying. I align with their frustrations over the power of money to steer government. When I was able to identify potential similarities with my faceless neighbor, I felt my fear diminish. As my fear diminished, I was able to recognize where I did not agree without the disagreement turning into fear. And something interesting happened. I felt a strong desire to be able to talk to people who were politically very different from me. I imagined how powerful it would be to truly listen to them. I had no desire to convert those who disagreed with me, nor did I expect that they would be converted. What I wanted was to genuinely know what prompted each individual. When I expressed my curiosity to my son, he said he would gladly send me a number of links to videos and podcasts that presented the other side. While I appreciated his knowledge and ready resources, I think it's important to recognize the difference between looking at the platform that people put forth to represent their views and actually hearing what they think and feel in the moment. My neighbor's flags are a platform. What led this person to wrap themselves in these flags? What fears, experiences, history, beliefs contributed to this turn in their path? What might come to light if someone simply listened and reflected back what they say? For a percentage of the human population, the platform cannot be set aside. But I know there are many, many people on both sides of issues who are able, under the right conditions, to look into themselves, to allow their internal monologue to be heard by themselves and to be witnessed by another. And in the process of allowing and being allowed, they are able to shift perspective and find new ways to interact in the world. The process of allowing is often a slow process of single steps rather than a leap to a new creative outcome. At the same time, as we allow a shift in our perceptions and our responses, by the law of attraction, we invite more shifts to occur. We open ourselves up for expansion, growth, and evolution. By the simple act of listening or being listened to, we may change not only our own vibration, but by the law of attraction, the vibration of our neighborhood, our community, our nation, and our world. Embracing the contrast of another person's views may be way too big a leap, particularly when we feel destabilized or vulnerable. We can still work on allowing diversity into our lives in much smaller steps. One place to start is in simply allowing diversity by naming diversity when we see it, and choosing to focus first on diversity that is harmonious with our positive feelings. For example, if we enjoy flowers, we can practice really noticing all the different colors and shapes and designs of flowers in our environment, and consciously recognizing that this is diversity at work. If we enjoy listening to music, we might begin by recognizing all the different songs we like, and then by listening for all the diverse textures, notes, rhythms, lyrics, and instruments in those songs, naming the diverse elements as different, even contrasting. Every moment of our lives is an opportunity to connect with deity, to allow for magic, and to embrace our calling as co-creators of our wondrous, diverse world. If you have questions or would like to explore more about the spiritual power and place of diversity and the art of allowing, you can connect with me via my website or email or on Facebook at Caravan of Dreams MT. Our music is used by permission of the artist, Sean Phoenix. Thank you, Sean. And thank you to Bozeman Public Library for the Workbench Sound Studio located in beautiful downtown Bozeman, Montana. If you would like to learn more about allowing and how to find your unique style of manifesting, please visit my website, caravanofdreamsmt.com, or email me at dancingwitchmt@gmail.com. This is Ginny Watts, the Dancing Witch. Till next time, blessed be.